You're simply the best. Better than all the rest.
Hello, welcome back to the channel. It's JPA here. In today's video I'm going to try and talk through yet another embarrassing lacklustre performance away domestically for Rangers. It's Hearts versus Rangers, and I'll just get straight into this video, guys. So if you didn't know the score, I finished Hearts 2, Rangers 1. Oh, wait a minute, sorry, I've got the wrong notes here. That was the last time we played at Tynecastle and got beat by exactly the same type of football that Hearts played. This game was absolutely incredible. It finished 1-0 Hearts, and to be honest it could have been 2 or 3-0. We were just so poor. I struggle to find a performance as bad as that for Rangers. I didn't think Hearts played particularly well. They fought well, they battled well, but they're not really a good footballing side, if you like. I think Hearts are probably one of the worst teams I've ever seen. That game was absolutely horrendous to watch. Most of it was throw-ins, long balls, headers, volleys, you name it. No really much football played at all in that game. Really disappointing day, and the worst thing is I could see it coming. I could see it coming a mile away. When that draw was made, I just thought, here we go again. And it was exactly the same game that we played last month. Exactly the same. Hearts played the same way. They might have played slightly different players, but they played the same tactics, and we just looked like rabbits caught in the headlights. And we looked shell shocked. It was just, how were these players not expecting that to happen when it happened the last time we played there? Happened the previous time when we played there as well. It just doesn't make much sense to me that the players didn't see this coming, that the management didn't see this coming and do something to rectify it. And I'll talk about the management a little bit later on. So even before the game started, we knew this kind of wasn't going to be our day. We found out that Morelos, the reason he wasn't involved in the squad was he went to Colombia last week. He was supposed to return on a Wednesday, came 24 hours late, missed the training session, missed a lot of the preparation for this match, which I don't know what preparation that was, because the players did not look prepared whatsoever. So Morelos got disciplined and he was dropped out of the squad for that reason. I can't have any complaints about that. I think Morelos is in the wrong in that situation. Dropping your best player, or arguably your best striker, for a massive game like this, there is questions raised about that, but I think he did make the right decision in the end. I don't think Morelos would have changed the outcome of this game. Talking about the game itself, there wasn't really much goal-mouth action. You've got to go to the last couple of minutes of the first half to really get any kind of talking points, really. Hearts had a penalty claim, which was a legitimate claim. Edmondson clearly handled the ball, and not only clearly handled it, he clearly meant it. He clearly moved, he looked down, moved his hand towards the ball, struck his arm, went out for a corner. The referee did not give the penalty. Corner comes in, and Hearts player, who's already been booked by the way, Demore, hits it in with his hands, and it's literally so blatant. He puts his hands up like that and pushes the ball into the net, and that's rightly not given, but the fact he was on a yellow card should have meant it was deliberate handball and he should have been sent off for that. I don't know why that wasn't given, but to be fair, Edmondson probably should have been sent off for his deliberate handball in the box as well. But in saying that, I think if Hearts had went into 10 men, it wouldn't have made the slightest bit of difference. We still would have really struggled in that game. We had no fight whatsoever, and that was pretty much the whole of the first half. So we came out for the second half, and you'd expected Steven Gerrard to really have a go at the players, and for them to come out fighting in the second half, because they literally had 45 minutes to save their season. If we didn't win that match, then it's pretty much curtains for everything. Probably the last chance to win a trophy. So we've got 45 minutes to rectify that, and we played exactly the same way. There was no fight, no intent. We didn't really create any chances going forward, and it was Hearts that looked more likely to score, and that was the case. 58 minutes in, they got their goal. It was kicked up in there, which it was pretty much up in there a lot particularly in that second half. And Tavernier tried to header it. I think he tried to header it back to McGregor. It was nowhere near enough power on it, and instead of trying to get back in and try and defend that situation, Tav kind of just lingered in the box, didn't really do much, showed no desire to get in and actually win the ball back. And McGregor ended up having to come out. The pass gets played beyond McGregor, and Bozanic had an easy tap in for 1-0. And it was comical defending, if you can even face laughing at that. If you're at any other club, you're on the floor laughing at how bad that defending was. It was really it was ridiculous. I remember saying in the St Johnstone game that the defending was comical. This was even worse. It was just embarrassing. And we didn't learn from it. We didn't respond. We didn't react to anything. Gerrard made a couple of subs, put Hadji on, which I think Hadji probably should have been on from the start. The one thing I will say is Hadji's not really a physical player, so this game might not have suited him anyway, but he's that one player in the team right now that is creating stuff, so I think he probably should have started the game. We did change a couple of things. We brought on Defoe, but that's all we did. We just changed personnel. We didn't change anything in terms of our approach to the game or doing anything different. It was the same, and our passing got progressively worse throughout the game. Hearts pressed us in. All credit to Hearts. I know I said they were a bad footballing team, but in terms of heart and desire and the willingness to press and run down every single pass was incredible. Really, it's pretty much what we did on Thursday night. That's what Hearts did against us. Pressed us right in, and we just couldn't get it. I noticed the one tactic that Hearts had. They'd maybe pass it back to their keeper. Their keeper would launch it, and they'd get like a wee flick on or something in the midfield, and it'd go to their attacking players. We'd be forced to kick it out for a throw-in, and then Hearts would be right onto us. They'd get the throw-in, and they'd press us so high up the park that even if we did get the ball, there was nowhere to put it but put it straight back to their keeper, who would kick it back, and the same thing would happen again and again. And that's pretty much how the second half went. I know the first half was pretty similar, but that's pretty much how it went, and there was no intent for us to go forward and try and win that game. We missed a couple of headers towards the end. Edmondson really should have scored at least one of them, but when it's not your day, it's not your day. And it finished 1-0 to Hearts. I just want to talk quickly about some of the players that I noticed. I want to talk in particular about Edmondson. As I said, he missed these chances. A lot of people were raving about him coming back in place of Katic, who had done really poorly against St Johnstone. So we brought Edmondson in against Braga, and he was outstanding, and people were saying, right, this is the partnership now, Goldson and Edmondson. Edmondson I thought was really poor. There was one point in I think it was the second half. Goldson went to clear it, Edmondson shitted for it, went to clear it again, and instead of clearing it, he backheeled it into the path of Stephen Naismith. Naismith was about an inch away from scoring his second goal. I don't know whether Edmondson's on a bonus for getting an assist, because that was ridiculous. I thought he played really poorly. I don't know what to just single him out, but I just thought I'd mention that, the fact that everybody was screaming for Katic to be dropped, Edmondson to come in, and he's done. Second thing I want to touch on, I pretty much touched on it a little bit earlier as well, was the standard of the game was absolutely horrendous. The amount of throw-ins that we had in this game was incredible. You've seen Game of Thrones on the TV, this was Game of Throw-ins. It was just ridiculous. I remember saying to my wife when I was watching this game, that's about every 30 seconds that ball's going out of play. And it did. And it was mostly us. Hearts had numerous chances to throw it in, and as I say, when they got their throw-ins, they were pressing right on top of us as well, which created more pressure on us. I thought it was a really poor standard of a game, and hopefully it doesn't sound like bitter because we lost the game. I thought it was a really poor standard of game. I thought the referee was shocking, but he was shocking to both sides, didn't get me wrong, I'm not blaming the referee at any point, but I thought he handled the game pretty poorly. And even the commentator said, I think it was Stephen Craigan, says every single decision of every single free kick, he's went the completely wrong way and got every single decision wrong. So I wanted to kind of talk about that as well. Next thing I wanted to talk about, is the captains. and I noticed a distinct difference in the two captains yesterday. Now, I know a lot of people dislike or even hate Stephen Naismith, but I thought he was a captain who led by example yesterday. He was getting the crowd, he was pressing everything. And for a small man who was winning every single header on the park, I didn't quite understand how he was doing it, but his work rate was incredible, and he seemed to lift every single Hearts player up. And then you compare that to Tavernier, who was at fault for the goal, didn't lift his team, didn't look like he wanted to go forward enough. And sometimes, as I've said in the past, Tavernier leads by example and creating stuff for us and driving us forward. He didn't do that at all. He looked like his head went down, and when your captain's head goes down, it tends to be that everybody else around their heads go down as well. So that seemed to be the case, and that's just one thing I noticed when I compared our captain Tav, who's supposed to lead by example, not doing it, and then their captain, who I didn't even think is a great football player. He was back in the day. I mean, when he played for us, he was getting linked with Arsenal and Everton and stuff like that. He was a real good player then. But I don't think he's a great footballing player now. He's just got that willingness to win. Last thing I want to talk about is the manager, Steven Gerrard. His post-match interview seemed to suggest that he's a beaten man, and he looks completely lost. His body language is pretty much like he's given up. I don't think he knows how to fix the situation that we're in. I'm a big Stevie J fan, and I'd like to back him, but these results kind of continue. I think if you take, and I remember saying this video in a video last year, and I feel like I'm saying it again, if you take his European results, take them away from the table and keep it as a separate entity, and just focus on what we've done domestically, I don't think it's been enough. I know he's improved us vastly. We've certainly in the first half of this season we were absolutely outstanding, and we were very consistent, but in the last 11, 12, maybe even 13 games since the break, we've just not been good enough, and something needs to change. Whether it's him personally changing the system or something needs to change, I don't know. A lot of people are now starting to suggest that Stevie Gerrard gets sacked. I don't know if that's the right thing to do. I don't know who would come in and do a better job, to be honest. I don't think we'd get as big a name as Steven Gerrard, to be honest. That name throughout world football is just a really big name, and it attracts a lot of players. I don't think we'd get the likes of Aribo or even Kent or even Hadji, for that matter, if it wasn't for the name of Steven Gerrard. But the reality is, he's not getting it right on the park. It was alarming the other day when Kent said in an interview, we prefer European football because there's no pressure on us, which means to me that there is pressure on them when they come back to play domestically. That's a big problem for a Rangers player to be saying that. It's a big problem for a manager to have that philosophy as well, and I think that seems to be in and around the club, the mentality that we're better suited to European football than domestically, but domestically is where we want to be. Europe's an added bonus, in my opinion. It gives us glamour ties and it gives us a little bit extra cash, but we want to be winning cups, we want to be winning leagues, and we want to be competing with Celtic, and we want to have the feel-good factor of being a Rangers fan back. And that's pretty much all I need to say on that. I'm going to wrap this video up, guys. I know it's probably going to be a long video, but there was a lot to discuss because that was an absolutely shambolic performance. I didn't want to take too much away for Hearts either. I thought they did what they had to do. They're not a great football inside, as I said, but they had heart and desire to win, and we just didn't have that. So thank you very much for watching. If you're new to the video, please subscribe. Hopefully they're not going to be all doom and gloom like this one. Hopefully we will pick ourselves up and go forward. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.